Now, President Jacob Zuma delivered the ruling ANC's annual January the 8th statement this weekend, saying decisive action was required to urgently transform the current economic patterns. The president referred to the 60-year-old Freedom Charter to provide a backdrop for the ANC's year plan. Well, to expand further on the weekend statement, ANC Treasurer General Zweli Mkhize joins us from Durban. Mr. Mkhize, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Devin, and all the viewers.
All right, so the President spoke about the National Development Plan assisting in realizing the Freedom Charter goals. The question is, can they really be reconciled? I mean, the NDP was not formulated with the Freedom Charter in mind, and in many instances is not coherent. What's your take on that?
Well, I think where we start, we say that the NDP will generate a lot of debate and there will be a lot of disagreements as the debate continues, but that does not stop us from implementing the National Development Plan. Secondly, the Freedom Charter was created as a vision as to what a post-apartheid South Africa should look like, and therefore created 60 years ago will certainly find a lot of things that are not necessarily easily aligned with what is happening today. The National Development Plan is focusing on the current initiatives and plans and programs to try and take South Africa into a better situation whereby people will have more access to basic services, the economy will have grown bigger, and that it's able to provide more jobs, unemployment would have been reduced. So insofar as it is a framework to take us to a situation where you've got a much better quality of life, it's an important document. But if we want to try and nitpick about the differences between the two documents, I think we might begin to lose the direction. So where we stand as the ANC is that the Freedom Charter has guided a lot of our progress in the past 20 years, the Constitution and the number of programs of government, the legislations that have been created, but where we are, and also the program of government in service delivery. And therefore, we will continue the debate to take South Africa to a situation where we've got a much more egalitarian society. In the ANC policy, we talk about a national democratic society, and here we, in the NDP, are really looking at a situation where South Africans are more equal, their access to resources, access to services, general basic services, are all in a much better situation that already changes the patterns of apartheid past.
Radical economic transformation, I mean, that's the phrase used this weekend. Some have said that there's very little evidence that the ANC is indeed pursuing radical economic transformation because we have not heard substance on the implementation side. What's your reaction to that? Well,
firstly, I think everyone is allowed to criticize the ANC, and the ANC will always look at the criticism. Insofar as the issue of the radical economic transformation, we're focusing on a number of issues which we think should have been achieved, maybe not have been achieved. So, for example, the President was talking about the question of the concentration of the economy on the hands of a few, which is an issue that we believe needs to be worked on. How do we make sure that the Competition Commission reduces more and more concentration? How do we make sure that the ownership, the management capacity, the control of various corporations can be in the hands of a majority or broader, deracializing it and all of this, but particularly how to ensure there's more skills for young people and that our economy is driven by high technological advancement at the same time, but it must also service as many people, create more jobs, and then you do not have the old patterns where the people who are in charge of the economy are very few, and particularly the old pattern of the white community that was in charge, but you must be able to racialize it over the period. And so that's really what we're looking at. So it's about the programs to negotiate in a number of instances, but where there's legislation needed, like we're talking about the issue of the land distribution, that needs to be used. And at the end of the day, you need to make sure that the pattern of our economy and the ownership and the levels of skills reflect the broad society of South Africa. It must not continue in the way it was.
In order for the economy to create those jobs, you need power. Now, given the current power crisis, Mr. Mkhize, many had anticipated more assurances that the ANC had a grip on the rolling blackouts, which were hurting an already subdued economy. What is the ANC's position on a remedy in this regard for the power situation?
I think we'll go back a little bit to say that what President was saying, that there was a time when we thought there was surplus energy in the country. When we started, this was when the focus on electrification was on towns and then suburbs with very few members of South African community. But now, once we expanded the electrification to rural areas, to townships, to small towns and so on, it's really shown that we had a wrong level of electricity supply. Unfortunately, for the first 10 years or so, there was lots of financial constraints, and so it was not possible to do the investments that were necessary, as much as it was understood that there would need be more investment to grow the electricity supply. And at that time, you would also realize that there was very little appetite from the private sector in the power generation because of the rate at which electricity was being sold, and so all of that were some of the factors. The ANC believes now what we need to do is to support initiatives to build more power plants, and also look at how we can leverage between the private sector, state-owned enterprises, to get more and more investments to be able to grow more capacity. We've seen already how government program on the renewable energy, the wind and solar, has really been a huge success. It's got its own issues that we need to deal with in terms, for example, of the level of the domestic participation. But nevertheless, it's a successful effort. So we need to grow that. So I think the issue of leveraging between public and private sector is going to be an important issue. The issue of growing more and putting the current ones into stream so that they are already able to reduce the burden on the grid, it's important. So from where we sit as the ANC, we will support those initiatives.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there, Mr. Mkhize, Secretary Treasurer General of the ANC. Thanks very much indeed for talking to us. Now, South African exports look like they come under pressure this year, despite a weaker exchange rate against the US dollar. This is South Africa's biggest trading partners continue to struggle with economic growth.
A weak rand-dollar exchange rate is seen by many as a means to boost South African exports as rand goods become cheaper in dollars. But that's not always the case. China is South Africa's biggest trading partner. But to date, China has sold more to South Africa than we have sold to them. Also, China is moving from an industrialization-based growth strategy to consumer-driven economy. This means it will buy fewer commodities from South Africa going forward, and we hardly sell manufactured goods to China. Our other big customer, Europe, is not doing too well either, and the euro is also getting weaker against the dollar. This would ordinarily not prove problematic, as the rand usually follows the euro. However, the euro has fallen at a pace that has left even the rand stronger against the euro.
If we don't weaken as much as they do, suddenly our exports to them become more expensive, and therefore we face declining demand from the